people don't realize that they're stories. They think this is who I am. That's one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated by identity, because when we can become so attached to our stories, it's like, but this is who I am. It does make it more difficult to look at them and say, well, but is that who I want to be?
Yes.
And realizing that changing it may be an option.
Welcome to Sacred Stories of the Spirit. I'm your host, Jordan Harcourt-Hughes. And today my guest is Rachel S Heslin, who is an author, speaker, and guide who has spent over 40 years exploring the psychology of identity and experience. She's the author of Navigating Life and Rituals Release, and her TEDx talk, A Defense of Victim Mentality, has inspired audiences worldwide. And through her latest work, Retaining Integrity, Rachel helps people stay true to themselves when the world tries to pull them apart. This conversation is about resilience and release and finding new ways to live with who we really are. So let's dive in. Welcome to Sacred Stories of the Spirit. I'm your podcast host, Jordan Harcourt-Hughes, and today my guest is Rachel S Heslin, who is an author and speaker. She's spent over 40 years exploring the psychology of identity and experience. She's the author of 2 books, Navigating Life and Rituals of Release. And her TEDx talk, A Defense of Victim Mentality, has inspired audiences worldwide. Through her newest work, Retaining Integrity, Rachel helps people stay true to themselves when the world tries to pull them up. Welcome to Sacred Stories of the Spirit. I'm your podcast host, Jordan Harcourt-Hughes, and today I'm in conversation with Rachel S Heslin. She's an author and speaker, and she's a guide who has spent over 40 years exploring the psychology of identity and experience. She's the author of Navigating Life and Rituals Release, and through her newest work, Retaining Integrity, Rachel helps people stay true to themselves when the world tries to pull them apart. So this conversation is about resilience and release and finding new ways to live in alignment with who we really are. So let's dive in. Well, welcome, Rachel. It's lovely to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Hello there. I am absolutely delighted to be here.
Now, Rachel, you've got a many-layered career and background, and you've been fascinated by the psychology of identity and experience for over 40 years. How have you, firstly, taught to help therapists incorporate storytelling into a clinical setting?
Well, just to put some context around my fascination with identity and experience, when you look at people in the same situation and they respond in totally different ways, I want to know why. What's going on in the inner world that acts as a filter and interpretation that changes how we approach our lives? My father's a clinical psychologist. That's one of the reasons I've been doing this so long, is part of his process was that as soon as he learned something, he would come home and then teach me. This meant I was introduced to neurolinguistic programming concepts when I was 9.
Okay. Fantastic.
But it does give a very different way of looking at the world. He was also the training director for the Southern California Society for Ericksonian Psychotherapy and Hypnosis, and yes, that is a mouthful. Would assist him by running the breakout sessions, working with the therapists, going through examples. What are ways that you can create metaphors and analogies that tap into the meaning of what it is your client may be struggling with? How can you create new ways of looking at what they see as their problems by redefining them, by sharing a story that says, well, what if we look at it this way? Does that open up new opportunities? And I had so much fun with that. And that's kind of what I do with my life.
Yeah. I find it interesting in the landscape of personal narrative. I wonder if we give ourselves enough permission to rewrite our stories and reframe them and reimagine them. I'm a writer, I work in the fiction landscape, and so for me it comes very easily, and I completely believe that we are all empowered to reimagine our own stories. And I wonder if there's sometimes a barrier there. People think, well, that's not real, it's not truthful if I'm just to go and imagine it or just create it. That's not fact. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, a lot of it's like fish don't know that they're wet. People don't realize that they're stories. They think this is who I am. That's one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated by identity, because when we can become so attached to our stories, it's like, but this is who I am. It does
Yes.
make it more difficult to look at them and say, well, but is that who I want to be?
Yes. Yes.
And realizing that changing it may be an option.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a foundational and fundamental truth that our stories are not us. I'm not my story and you are not yours either. And there's an incredible freedom in that. There's a liberation from this sense that our identity is this static thing and the story will never change and can never change. So I love that. I think that's very freeing. In a clinical setting, do you think that has been adopted well?
In the cohort I work with, yes.
Yeah.
As I said, my father was actually mentored by Milton Erickson, who was one of the fathers of hypnosis and hypnotherapy, of talking to the subconscious, looking at the stories. How do you change those stories? So because I was raised in that environment, the people I was exposed to, that's just kind of the way we look at the world.
Yeah.
So it's clinical, and it's also, I use it with my kids. It's not
Yeah.
something you have to go to a therapist to go talk about your stories. You can look at yourself and say, where am I empowering myself? Where am I limiting myself? Where am I making assumptions that may not be valid at this point in my life? I mean, you talk about we are not our stories, but the most powerful stories are the ones that do carry a seed of truth in them. They resonate. It's not like we're pretending to be someone. It's more like we're playing with a wardrobe and seeing what fits.
I love
And
that.
sometimes it's fun just to do it, but sometimes I know for myself, it's been a matter of which stories feel good, which stories are congruent with who it is I want to be in the world.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the idea of a wardrobe, and for anyone going into the wardrobe, sometimes you have to have some options. Sometimes you have to try on a few things and put a few things back to see what feels good. And I like the idea of the resonance match. We can try out what story has the resonance that carries forward that source of truth. So I love that. Yeah, from all different angles.
And it also depends on the situation.
Yes.
One of the things that I really enjoy working with my clients with is differentiating between corrugations versus, it's like hiding versus highlighting. If you're afraid that people may not like all of you and you crunch in on yourself, that's a certain type of energy and you are hiding who you are. However, if you recognize that you contain multitudes and different aspects of yourself are more appropriate for certain situations than others, then, like you said, it's the wardrobe. You go and you choose, which outfit am I going to wear in this situation? If you're going in for a job interview, you will probably choose to wear something different than if you're going to a hockey game with your friends.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of choice instead of fear.
Tell me about the clients that you work with today. What does that work entail for you?
I'm actually coming back from a hiatus. My husband passed away unexpectedly
I'm sorry to hear
almost 3 years ago.
Wow.
Fortunately, let me do the whole sentence because it doesn't sound fortunate.
Yes.
His mother had passed away 8 months earlier.
Wow.
And the reason that's fortunate is she had actually left us enough money to pay off all our debts, including the house. Therefore, when my husband passed, I had the freedom to stay with my kids, to focus on my home, and honestly, to focus on my own grieving and my processing. And let's face it, that's a major story change.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent just because I found this so fascinating. I am Southern California born and bred.
Yeah.
I cannot count the number of times I have been to Disneyland. It was just one of those things that as a kid I did growing up, as a teenager, later on, going on dates. Right after my husband passed, he had been scheduled to take one of our bonus kids and his biological mom and his fiance. The four of them were supposed to go to Disneyland together. And then my husband died. And I decided, you know what? We're still going to go. So we went to Disneyland. For me, it was being present in the moment, being there for one of my kids. But what was odd is I didn't know my way around. I could not. I could look at a map. Like I said, I know Disneyland. I know where the various things are, and I would look at it and say, "Oh, look, pretty colors." My brain could not process.
Wow.
And what I realized is that the visual spatial mapping area of my brain was completely full of remapping my vision of my entire future.
Wow. Incredible.
That was just wild.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Now, listen, the power of story and the power of narrative has been a thread throughout your life and your career. Tell me and how you work with others to build that kind of narrative process.
I was the director of public information for the Campaign for a New United Nations Charter. This was back in my mid-20s. I was really looking at what are the structural elements that can make us more free. There's got to be a better way of dealing with international differences than killing each other. But the United Nations was created at a certain time that it was the best we could do, and there is an article, Article 109 of the UN Charter, that says every 10 years, we need to come together and reevaluate what are the needs of the world and how can we better provide for them. So I was working with this organization that says, let's just activate the article and do what it says. Looking back, I was relatively young, and I mean, it was over half my lifetime ago. There are things I would do differently because the stories that I attempted to create were from my head. It's like, wouldn't it be nice if this, that, and the other? If I were to approach it nowadays, I would be communicating more with the heart of looking at the inspiration. What could we truly achieve as humanity if we were released from fear?
Yes. I mean, look, I
was going to go on to a different one, but if you want to respond to that one, yeah.
Oh, look, I just think that responding to fear is such a big thing at the moment. You know, fear is such a big distractor and detractor, and it's a giant in the world, I think, and can be overwhelming if we allow it. So any stories that allow us to sit with fear, dissemble it, resize it, reinterpret it in our own benefit, I think that's incredibly powerful.
You had mentioned you had asked about my work with clients. One of the things I have done with clients is find out what it is they're actually afraid of. And then follow it down the rabbit hole. That's something my husband taught me. For myself, one of my personal fear, I mean, we each have those little stories and things, and my personal flavor is enoughness. I can never do or be enough. And he suggested I sit with that and just get quiet and look at, what if it's true? What if I'm not enough? I tell this story differently depending on which audience I'm speaking to. Since the title of this is Sacred Stories of the Spirit, I will tell you the words I actually heard. Because what came up was, you're right, you're not enough, so let me work through you.
Wow, that's so interesting. Gosh. Can I ask you, when those words came through, what was the experience of it? Was it literally a sense of clarity where you heard something, or did you feel it, or was it kind of a knowing?
I'm generally, my knowing is a knowing. It's just a sensation where everything is congruent. In this particular thing, I felt those words and I felt a sense of relief. And there was like a recognition. It was like, oh, that's the lesson I'm here to learn. That is one of the reasons I'm here. I keep bringing up my old family story that my first words were do myself. So part of my journey is like, no, you're not here to do it by yourself. You're here to collaborate. You're here to play. You're here to be with others. In some ways, I give my title as catalyst and facilitator. I'm here to be an instrument. I'm here to be a channel. And the more I get out of my own way, the greater an impact I have.
Yes, I love that. I remember because I teach mindful creativity and I teach it in a range of environments, online and in person. But I remember one time I was preparing for a class and it was in a classroom in the city and I was extremely tired. I was just exhausted. And even the thought of turning up to facilitate this course, which, I love. It's one of the best things I do. But I almost couldn't the fact that I had 3 hours of this, ahead of me. And I said, I just put out a thought to the universe. I would love to collaborate. Please, let's do this together because I don't think I've got the energy up. And do you know, it was the best thing I've ever done. And it was a turning point for me. And I think I do that whenever I can now because it worked out so well. I mean, it was one of the best classes I think I've ever done. And I love that sense of if you open up a space, it's incredible what happens when you allow that.
Amazing. It's like my best client sessions are the ones where I allow myself to learn from my client.
Yes, that's beautiful.
It's like the act of opening myself up to that type of receptivity.
Very good. Thank you. Now, I have these questions that I ask everyone that comes on the podcast. I think you've already mentioned one story that you used to tell about yourself that you've since been able to release, which was that you're not enough. I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Is there any other story or has that been the one that you're most proud of being able to say goodbye to?
The interesting one is a story that's been evolving and that involves my physical health. When I was a teenager, I had a just really bad mold exposure combined with the high school I was in. It was a single building that was full of chemicals, such that by the end of the day, I was actually losing consciousness.
Goodness me.
I had to be homeschooled. My skin would get mottled because my blood was just not flowing properly. The first story that I picked up about this was that I was fragile, that anything out there would, that I had to protect myself.
Yes.
That evolved to, it's not so much that I'm fragile, but I had to be careful about how much stuff I put on myself. I had to be using the analogy of a barrel, where the more stuff you put in it, the easier it is to overflow. So how do I lower the level of stuff in my barrel so that it doesn't overflow so easily? So that gave me a little bit more.
Yeah.
Last year, I had another evolution of that story where I had been doing really well, and then it rained. And when it rains, the barometric pressure drops, the mold comes out, and I just felt, this is terrible. Nothing I do works. Notice that was the story, the why bother.
Yes.
I actually have a framework that I use. I call it the agency framework, which is acknowledge your feelings, examine your thoughts, and take responsibility for your actions. So in that case, I mean, thank goodness, it's back to I create these for myself, and then if they help others, great. In that case, my feelings were depression and resignation and why bother. The story, the thoughts around it were nothing I do works. And examining them, it's like, well, hold on a second. Let's look at how I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. I would have been laid out for like a week, and I wasn't. I was a little fuzzy-headed. I had less energy, but I could still do stuff. And the taking responsibility for my actions was, don't let what I cannot do get in the way of what I can.
Love that.
Even though I may not be capable of as much as I would like, that doesn't mean I can't do anything. What can I do to continue to move myself forward, even if it has to be modified for the circumstances?
Yep.
And the last part of that, where I currently am, is looking at, what if I am actually more capable than I realize? What if I can heal my cells? And that's a really fun one to play with.
Yeah, and look, it's an incredible evolution. It's a beautiful way of kind of exploring this idea that not only can you release an old story, but you can recalibrate a story, you can evolve a story, and you can find a continuing evolution of that story as you grow and evolve yourself. It's a really empowering and lovely transitional way to look at story. Beautiful. Thank you. My name is Jordan Harcourt-Hughes, and I'm the host of the Sacred Stories of the Spirit podcast, and I welcome you into our conversations. This podcast aims to create space for honest conversations about how we find meaning in a world where so much is shifting. We talk about personal turning points, spiritual unravelings, creative awakenings, and the stories that we've outgrown. I'm speaking with an incredibly diverse array of practitioners who are offering insights, expertise, and lived wisdom on storytelling as medicine. My guests include psychologists, counsellors, entrepreneurs, academics, and professionals. These people are often holding up the scaffolding of the system and also quietly questioning it. So this podcast gives them permission to speak from that edge. To explore more episodes, show notes, and information about our guests and the themes that we explore on the show, visit sacredstoriesofthespirit.com. I hope you enjoy the podcast, and once again, welcome. Okay, so if you had 3 insights to share about how we can change our stories that no longer support where we're going, what would they be?
The first one is just realizing it's possible. What we had talked about earlier of recognizing that your stories don't necessarily define you. They can help you. You can change them. It is possible to change them. So once you get to that point, it's important to recognize when they're no longer supporting you. Do they feel constricting? Do you find yourself using your stories to justify why you're stuck? That's a really big one. If that's the case, then it may be time to go look for another story. The second thing that I think is really important is honoring the story that you've had.
Yes.
It has gotten you to this point. It has had value for you, or it would not have been there. I'm talking with one of my daughters who had a challenging childhood. She's one of my bonus kids, letting her know, no, these stories you tell yourselves have kept you alive. Be grateful for them. Thank them for their service, and let them know that you appreciate what they have done for you.
Yes, I love that.
And then the third is looking into, what is your next step? Who do you want to become? One of my mentors has a phrase that I absolutely love, which is turn your ceilings into floors.
Ooh, sounds good. Fantastic. Great 3 steps. Thank you. So any similar kind of in that kind of words of wisdom space for when it comes to living in a world that's changing so fast and there's so much going on?
I could give a one-word answer and just say breathe. It's especially for those of us who care very deeply. It can be challenging because we want to help. We see so much pain. You talked about the fear. There is so much happening. We get tugged into it. Therefore, if we want to actually have an impact, we need to pull back. We need to double and triple down on our self-care. Become present in your body. Mentally, what are the thoughts that are going around? What are you fueling your thoughts? Ruthlessly curate what you allow into your space. If you're going to do social media, do your absolute best to put limits on it, create a container, and monitor yourself. If you start getting sucked in, that's a time to back off. Actually, before that happens is a good time to back off. Be aware of the seductive nature of stories. There is a physiological draw for drama. It gives us all sorts of endorphins of like, oh my God, and outrage and this and that and the other. But they get in the way of actually making a difference. So
Very
pull
powerful.
back, breathe, grieve. A lot of anger is masking grief. Anger can be a wonderful tool, but it can also eat you alive if you use it to ignore the fear and the hurt and the pain and everything that's underneath, because it can become corrosive. They're both authentic. They're both part of who you are. And be gentle with yourself. I like creating rituals because they provide a container so that you can open your heart, a safe place to allow the tender parts of you to come out, give them love. And then let's face it, pack them away again before going out into the world, because the world's rough right now. And
So
these
much
can
wisdom
all help
there.
you find your way.
Yeah, I love it. I love everything that you've just said. I think there's so much beauty there. The thing that I was writing down is this phrase, ruthless curation. I think that's a beautiful way to think of it, ruthless.
It is. And because let's face it, 10 years ago, things were different.
Yeah.
10 years ago, the company, or however long, the company I started, I chose the name The Fullness of Your Power. And the idea was to help people stop fighting themselves so that they could take all the various aspects of themselves, work together as a team in order to tap into that fullness of what they are truly capable of. Things are changing now. What is being called forth from me right now is called retaining integrity, because it's not just our internal stories anymore. The world itself is breaking down. I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent, but it is happening. And we need more tools. We need more community in order to retain that congruence, our personal integrity, the essence of who we are, so that we can rise to meet the challenges of this transforming world.
I think that's incredible. I personally think that the world breaking down is not a bad thing. I think dissembly is part of nature. Nature does exactly the same thing. So we are part of nature, and it's very natural for things to fall apart. And then part of our creative nature as humans is to rebuild and to reestablish. And it's a wonderful chance to say, well, if this is breaking, what is the new thing? What is the way that we want to move forward? How do we rebuild in the rubble of the old? I do think that this is also where fear comes into it a lot, because I think we shy away from this idea of things breaking down because we don't necessarily feel empowered to say, well, we're going to recreate the new thing, or we're going to establish something better, So I think this is where the challenge and the tension is. And I completely agree. I think as many tools that we can develop and share to help us recalibrate through this transformation we will be better for it. So tell me what it is that you're doing with retaining integrity.
At the moment, I am working on building community. I am trying to create a safe place where people can come together, where we have that safe container, where we can breathe, where we can explore what are the possibilities. This is a time of personal reassessment. Who do I need to be? Who is the universe? Who is the world asking me to be in this moment, in these circumstances? And how do I build the confidence that I can actually become that person?
Beautiful. Yes, beautiful. In all of the work that you've done across, exploring identity and storytelling, what's the most surprising lesson that you've learnt about yourself?
After all of these decades playing with stories, deliberately creating empowering and inspiring stories, I recently discovered that there are times to let go of story.
Yes.
Stories are about understanding your past. Stories are about envisioning your future, but you can only live in the now. And when you're in the now, let go of the stories and just be.
Beautiful. very deep and very profound, and I think lovely. It's a lovely way to look at things. Thank you. Very, very valuable, I think. So, Rachel, where can people find you?
retainingintegrity.com
Great.
is the new one. Can also reach me through my legacy site, which is The Fullness of Your Power. And in fact, the meditation that I meant I have available as a free gift on my website. I can send you the link if you want to put it in
I'll
the
share
show
that
notes.
for sure.
It's called Reconnect with Now, a walking meditation.
I think that will be valuable for all of us. I'll be doing that for sure. Well, Rachel, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all of your insights and intuitive wisdom. It's been a real pleasure to have the conversation.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I think this type of connection is what's going to get us through what's coming and what's already here.
I agree. Thank you. As we close today's conversation and this first series of Sacred Stories of the Spirit, I want to thank you for being part of the journey so far. Over 10 episodes, we've explored storytelling as medicine, as a pathway to healing, and as a way of making sense of our lives. If you've joined us partway through, I invite you to go back and explore the full series. There are so many rich conversations just waiting for you to explore. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to sharing more sacred stories with you in the future.